When my son got married, I never told him I won $33 million. Not because I was afraid, not because I wanted to hide, but because silence lets you see people clearly. And I needed to see, very clearly, who would stand beside my son once he built a life of his own. My name is Catherine Hale. I'm 67 years old, a widow, and for 5 years I've lived the life of a woman who supposedly had nothing. The world treats a poor old woman in a very specific way. And trust me, people reveal everything when they think you can't offer them anything. My apartment in Old Town was part of the disguise: tiny kitchen, old wallpaper, a sofa that had survived decades, the kind of place people walk into and instantly decide who you are. I kept the truth in a metal box on the top shelf of my closet, a lottery ticket worth $33 million, untouched, unframed, uncelebrated. I didn't need a trophy. I needed perspective. 3 days after Evan's wedding, perspective arrived right at my door. That morning, I was wearing the same faded blue cardigan with the loose thread on the sleeve, a piece of clothing so ordinary it practically erased me. I was pouring tea into my chipped white mug when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Sharp, intentional. The kind of knock that belongs to someone who has already decided who you are. I dried my hands and walked to the door. The hallway smelled like old newspapers and cold air drifting through the stairwell. When I looked through the peephole, my breath didn't catch, but something inside me sharpened. Lily, my new daughter-in-law, standing stiff, coat perfectly pressed, expression painfully polite, and next to her, a man in a gray suit holding a leather briefcase. A lawyer. I didn't open the door yet. Instead, I watched. Lily shifted nervously. She kept glancing at the lawyer like she was hoping he'd speak first. Her lips were tight, her hands clasped together as if she was walking into a negotiation she didn't fully understand. The lawyer, on the other hand, stood like he owned the building. Tall, serious, efficient. He tapped the folder against his arm, already impatient. That told me everything. I opened the door 2 inches. "Yes?" I said calmly. Lily attempted a smile. It didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Catherine. I hope we're not disturbing you." "You are," I replied. "But go on." She stiffened. The lawyer stepped forward. "Mrs. Hale, my name is Peter Kingsley," he said in a rehearsed tone. "I represent your daughter-in-law and her family. We'd like a few minutes to discuss a matter regarding your son." "My son?" I repeated. He nodded. "Yes, Evan." Lily's voice wavered. "It's nothing bad. It's just, we need to clarify some financial things. My parents thought it was best to bring legal guidance so everything is clear." There it was. Financial things. 3 days after the wedding. I let the silence sit just long enough for both of them to feel it. Then I opened the door wider. "Come in," I said. "Let's hear what this is about." The lawyer entered first, immediately scanning my apartment with the subtle judgment of a man who measured others by the square footage of their living room. His eyes paused on my worn sofa, on the old lamp, on the small TV. Good. Let him underestimate me. Lily stepped in next, more hesitant, her heels clicking against the old wooden floor. I closed the door behind them. The click echoed like a line drawn in the sand. "This won't take long," Kingsley said, pulling out the folder. "It's a simple conversation about expectations and responsibilities now that Evan is married." I held up a hand. "Let me stop you right there." He blinked, thrown off just a little. "Before you say anything," I continued quietly, "I want you both to understand something." The room felt still, like even the air was listening. "This," I said, looking at the lawyer, then at Lily, "is why I stayed silent." Lily's brows knit together. "What do you mean?" I stepped around them, slow and deliberate, and set my chipped mug on the table. "If people think you have nothing," I said, "they show you who they are. Fast." The lawyer straightened. "Mrs. Hale, we simply want to—" "No," I interrupted. "You want to discuss money." He stiffened. I turned to Lily. And you, dear, came here with a lawyer instead of a conversation." Her face flushed with embarrassment. I nodded slowly. "Thank goodness," I said softly, "that I never told you what I truly have." Their eyes flickered. Curiosity, confusion, calculation. And in that moment, standing in my small, quiet apartment, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This visit was the first move in a battle they thought I was too weak to fight. They were wrong. People think poverty is loud. It isn't. Real poverty is quiet, like a background noise people stop noticing. And that quietness was useful to me. Long before Lily showed up at my door with a lawyer, long before the Carter family decided I needed to clarify financial matters, I had already crafted the life they believed I lived. A simple woman, a woman who barely scraped by, a mother who should be grateful for crumbs. I built that illusion carefully. 5 years earlier, when I won $33 million, the first thing I bought was not a car or a vacation or a designer bag. It was a metal box, fireproof, heavy, ugly. I kept the ticket inside, folded once, untouched. The second thing I bought was silence. I did not tell Evan. I did not tell friends. I did not tell neighbors. I signed the claim quietly, transferred the winnings to a blind trust, and established an investment entity under a name no one would ever connect to me, Northern Crest Capital. A private investment company headquartered in a plain office building downtown. No signage, no flash, just numbers, growth, strategies. I hired 2 advisors under confidentiality agreements, so strict they might as well have been carved in stone. And then I went back to my life, the same modest rent-controlled apartment, the same grocery store, the same public bus route. Because power means nothing if you show it too early. Power only matters when you show it exactly when it hits the hardest. That morning, after Lily and the lawyer walked into my apartment, a strange calm washed over me. This was the moment the disguise was tested. I stood by the small kitchen table, eyes drifting to the metal box on the top shelf of my closet. A box no one had ever asked about. A box that held the reason I could predict every move people made around me. I opened it now, not for them, but for myself. Inside was the folded lottery ticket, a stack of bank documents, and the original Northern Crest Capital registration with my clean, precise signature at the bottom. I touched the ticket lightly with the tip of my finger, not out of sentiment, but out of recognition. This wasn't luck. This was the beginning of a strategic life. Behind me, the lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hale, as I mentioned, we'd like to discuss a few expectations regarding Evan's future now that the families are joined." Families. Joined. A word they liked to use when they needed your resources, never when they needed your dignity. I closed the box and returned it to its shelf. "I'll get to that," I said. "But first, let me finish something." I walked to my bedroom. Laid out on the bed were the clothes that had become part of my persona. A faded cardigan, soft at the elbows, a worn-out pair of flats, a beige scarf with tiny snags on the edge. My poor woman uniform. Every piece served a purpose. People underestimate what looks cheap. People behave more freely around what they think can't fight back. I slipped the cardigan on and examined myself in the mirror. My reflection looked exactly like the world assumed. Average, quiet, harmless. A woman who saved coupons and worried about the price of eggs. A woman who would never challenge a wealthy family with lawyers and sharp smiles. I leaned closer and whispered, "Invisible is useful." And it was. Being underestimated is the most powerful position a woman can have. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, an old flip model I kept for show, while my real phone stayed locked away in a secure safe at Northern Crest. It was a voicemail from 2 days after Evan's wedding. "Mom, everything went great. I just hope you weren't uncomfortable with the restaurant or, Simone's family can be a bit formal." Formal. That was the word he chose. I listened to the message again. His hesitations, his tone, the embarrassment he tried to hide, it all confirmed what I already knew. He had grown up believing I struggled. He didn't know my success. He didn't know my discipline. He didn't know the strength that shaped his life. And perhaps that was my mistake. Back in the living room, the lawyer sat stiffly on my sofa, as if its age offended him. Lily stood beside the window, looking out, chewing lightly on her lip. She wasn't cruel the way her mother was, but she was weak, and weakness in the hands of powerful parents becomes a weapon. "So," I said, taking my seat, "tell me what this is really about." Lily spoke first, her voice gentle but trembling. "My parents, they just want to make sure Evan is protected. You know, financially. Married life is expensive, and they want everything clearly organized." "Organized?" I repeated. "Meaning?" She hesitated. "Meaning, they want to understand what Evan can count on. From you." There it was. The truth, wrapped in a polite ribbon. The lawyer opened his folder. "Your current income, savings, assets, long-term support capacity." I held up a hand. "You want my financial information?" I didn't phrase it as a question. He nodded. Lily's cheeks reddened with embarrassment. I leaned back, folding my hands calmly. "When my son was little," I said, "I taught him that people who love you don't measure you by money." Lily swallowed. "I know, Catherine. I'm not asking—" "No," I interrupted. "You came here because someone thinks I owe them numbers." The lawyer shifted. "Well, it's standard Not in my world." Silence thickened around us. I looked at the cardigan on my arm, at the faded thread, at the tiny apartment they assumed defined me, at the chipped mug on the table, and I almost smiled. Every piece of this disguise had led to this exact moment. The moment where people with wealth would reveal their character, and the woman they thought was weak would decide who deserved proximity to her son. I spoke quietly, intentionally. "You're asking what Evan can count on from me." They both nodded. I met their eyes, first Lily's, then the lawyer's. "He can count on this," I said. A slow pause. "I have protected my son all his life, and I will continue to protect him from anyone who thinks money gives them the right to control him." Lily's lips parted. The lawyer blinked. I stood, smoothing my cardigan. "Now," I said, "shall we continue?" The Aurora Lounge in downtown Chicago wasn't a restaurant. It was a declaration, a place for people who wanted to be seen, admired, envied. Crystal lighting, velvet chairs, the kind of place where the air itself whispered money. Lily had chosen it, or rather, her parents had. Evan walked beside me as we entered the lobby. His fingers tugged lightly at his tie, nerves showing through. That alone told me everything about the family I was about to meet. "Mom, they're already here," he murmured without looking directly at me. "I figured," I responded. His jaw tightened. "Just be patient tonight, please." Patient. That word again. I adjusted the sleeve of my faded cardigan and followed him. The hostess greeted us with a perfect smile. "Reservation for Carter Hale?" "Right there," Evan gestured toward the back. At the long table near the panoramic windows sat the Carter family. Miranda Carter looked up first. She wore an immaculate cream blazer paired with pearl earrings that sparkled under the chandeliers. Her hair, thick, glossy, calculated, rested on her shoulders like armor. Her eyes traveled from my shoes to my cardigan without hiding anything. Not curiosity, not surprise, assessment. Douglas Carter occupied the seat beside her. Tall, rigid posture, expression carved from stone. He glanced at me once, then returned to his water glass, as if the evaluation was already complete. Lily rose from her seat quickly. "Catherine, I'm glad you made it." Her voice trembled around the edges. Miranda didn't rise. Instead, she offered me a polite, tight-lipped smile. "Mrs. Hale." "Miranda," I replied evenly. Douglas nodded, minimal effort. "Evening." I pulled out my chair, alone. No one moved to assist, not even Evan. I sat at the end of the table, the farthest seat from the Carters, exactly where people place those they consider unimportant. The placement wasn't accidental. Miranda lifted her wine glass with a graceful tilt. "I hope you found the place without trouble." "It wasn't difficult," I replied. "I've been in Chicago longer than most skyscrapers." Her expression twitched, just slightly. A waiter approached with menus, heavy, embossed, French terms flowing like riddles. He placed one in front of me, then hesitated, waiting for instructions from Miranda. She offered a smooth smile. "Do you need help with the selections, Catherine? The menu can be overwhelming for some." Overwhelming for some. Not for her, of course. I glanced at the menu, then met her eyes. "Go ahead." Her lips curved. "Perhaps something simple would be best. The grilled chicken is mild. Easy." "Perfect." Douglas leaned back, observing. "Do you dine out often?" "On occasion." "Where?" he pressed. "Wherever I choose." He paused mid-sip. Lily shot him a warning glance, but he ignored it. Miranda placed her napkin over her lap delicately. "Our daughter grew up experiencing refined dining, travel, culture. We believe exposure shapes character." She wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking about me. I responded calmly. "Exposure certainly reveals character." Miranda blinked at the sharpness, but kept her composure. The waiter returned with wine. "Would you like a pour, ma'am?" he asked, turning to me. Miranda interjected softly. "Perhaps start with water for her. This vintage is quite sophisticated." Quite sophisticated, meaning too good for me. The waiter hesitated until I nodded. "Water is fine." He stepped away. Douglas leaned forward slightly. "Evan tells us you still work. Admirable at your age." Evan stiffened. "Dad," Miranda lifted a hand. "We're simply impressed by her dedication." I kept my tone steady. "It's honest work." "Of course," Miranda murmured, letting the words hang like smoke. "Every job has merit, even modest ones." Lily's shoulders curled inward. She wasn't cruel by nature. She was shaped by cruelty. Miranda shifted her attention to me again. "Do you live far from here? Old Town?" "Oh," she nodded knowingly. "That area is quaint." Quaint. A wealthy woman's word for poor. Douglas cut his steak with slow precision. "Lily mentioned your home is small." "It's enough." "For one person, perhaps," Miranda added with sweetness sharp enough to scratch glass. "You must be proud of Evan making such a jump in life. Our families are very different." Evan inhaled sharply. "Mom." I placed a hand lightly on the table. "It's all right." Miranda continued. "We only want the best for our daughter. Naturally, we were concerned that her lifestyle might shift." "Shift?" I echoed. Douglas didn't let her answer. "Well, marriage merges families, resources, expectations. We simply want clarity." There it was again. Clarity. A word rich people use when they're asking you how much you're worth. The first course arrived. Miranda lifted her fork with elegant precision. Lily stared at her plate, cheeks warming. "So, Catherine," Miranda began, slicing delicately, "what exactly do you do at your office?" Evan tensed beside her, recognizing the trap. "I do a bit of everything," I replied. "Whatever needs to be handled." "Ah," Miranda breathed, as if understanding something profound. "Administrative tasks, filing, phone calls." My face remained still. She added gently, "It must be challenging at your age, especially without financial cushion." Douglas lowered his utensils. "Do you have savings?" Evan's jaw clenched. "Dad, stop." Miranda touched his arm lightly. "We're simply trying to understand." "Understand what?" I asked, my tone turning chill. She didn't retreat. "The environment Evan came from." Lily flinched. "Mom, please." But Miranda pressed on. We've poured a great deal into preparing our daughter for the life she deserves. Private schools, travel, investments. It's only natural we want to ensure her marriage is compatible. Compatible, I repeated quietly. Miranda nodded, a polished smile returning. Yes, each family contributes. Each family supports. You understand. I let the silence stretch. Her confidence swelled in the spaces she thought I couldn't fill. Finally, I leaned in just an inch. Every mother supports her child, Miranda. The question is how. She lifted her chin. Exactly. Good, I replied softly. Then we agree. Her smile faltered because she didn't understand what I meant. The waiter placed the first course in front of us, tiny plates that looked more like decoration than food. Miranda lifted her fork as if conducting an orchestra. So, she began lightly, we were just discussing Simone's new project in Milan. Such a competitive field, but she always rises above. Simone forced a smile. It's just work, Mom. Nonsense, Miranda countered, slicing through her appetizer with elegant precision. Exceptional talent should be acknowledged. Her eyes flicked toward me, gauging my reaction, waiting for awe, insecurity, something. She got nothing. Douglas dabbed his napkin at his mouth. You know, international work requires a certain background, a certain stability. Evan tensed beside him. Dad, work ethic matters more than— Work ethic, Miranda interrupted gently, is admirable. But so is support. Emotional, financial, familial. She let the last word hang directly above my head. I leaned back slightly. Support comes in many forms. Miranda's lashes fluttered with amusement. Of course, though some forms are more impactful. The waiter returned with a bottle of wine. Miranda gestured for him to pour for Douglas, then Lily, then herself. When he reached me, she lifted a hand. Just water for her. The waiter froze, unsure, and glanced my way. I nodded once, unfazed. Lily's eyes dropped to her plate, guilt pooling across her expression. Miranda lifted her glass. To family. Douglas added, and to choosing wisely. Their glasses clinked softly. Evan raised his glass last. His fingers trembled slightly. I simply lifted my water. Miranda turned toward me again. Catherine, dear, do you enjoy traveling? I don't mind it. Her brow arched. Where was your last trip? Nowhere recently. Ah. She nodded slowly, satisfied. Travel can be costly. Understandable. Douglas crossed his arms, settling deeper into his seat. What about hobbies? Do you have any? I read, I replied. Cook. Spend time with neighbors. Ordinary things. Ordinary is charming, Miranda commented, though I imagine it's difficult to find time when you're still working. It keeps me busy. Yes, she murmured. I imagine it does. A waiter passed by with a tray of fresh bread. Miranda waved him off for their side of the table. He offered the basket to me. I accepted a single piece. Miranda watched closely, as if tallying every detail about me. Then she leaned forward, voice softening. Catherine, may I ask something personal? Lily's eyes snapped upward. Mom, don't— Miranda pressed on. Your retirement plans. Do you have any? I studied her calmly. I manage. She lifted her chin. Of course. But will you be able to support yourself fully? Chicago isn't cheap. My situation is under control. Douglas exhaled a short breath that bordered on a scoff. Evan mentioned your apartment is modest. Evan stiffened. Dad, please drop it. Miranda placed a hand on his sleeve. We're simply gathering context, sweetheart. For Lily's future, marriage requires transparency. Her gaze slid back to me. And understanding what each family brings. That was the first direct jab, wrapped in courtesy, sharpened like a blade. I matched her stare steadily. Families bring different things. Money is only one of them. Certainly, Miranda agreed, though her smile thinly masked her disagreement. But financial grounding helps prevent future strain, especially when children arrive. Douglas interjected. Raising a child today easily costs over $200,000, more depending on lifestyle. Miranda tapped a fingernail lightly against her wine glass. And Lily has grown up accustomed to certain standards. We just want to make sure Evan won't be overburdened. Evan leaned forward, tension radiating off him. I can handle my own life. Miranda's tone softened condescendingly. We know, darling. We simply want you to thrive, and thriving requires resources. She returned her focus to me. Catherine, you must understand. A quiet breath left my chest. I understand perfectly. The waiter delivered the second course. Miranda gave him a tight nod and turned to Lily. Sweetheart, did you tell them about the honeymoon package? Lily shook her head, uneasy. You should, Miranda encouraged. It was lovely. Lily forced a whisper. It was very generous. Miranda smiled proudly. We spent $12,000, worth every cent. Memories are priceless. Her eyes drifted to me. For some families, that amount might be difficult. Douglas added, We helped with the down payment for their home too, just a little boost. A boost, I echoed softly. Exactly, Miranda affirmed. Parents help. We simply want to ensure both sides contribute fairly. Fairly, I repeated. Lily shifted in her seat, face warming with discomfort. Mom, please. Miranda ignored her. Catherine, have you been able to help Evan financially? Even small amounts count. I placed my fork down deliberately. Evan hasn't needed my help. Or perhaps, Miranda suggested lightly, you simply couldn't offer much. A long silence fell over the table. Douglas broke it with a low voice. No shame in that. Everyone has limitations. Miranda nodded, a sympathetic expression forming. We all do our best. We simply want clarity about what Evan can expect from his side of the family. For planning. Lily whispered, Mom, stop. Miranda ignored her again. In our experience, transparency prevents disappointment. I met her gaze head on. And what exactly do you think would be disappointing? Miranda held my gaze, unblinking. Well, if Evan marries into a family that cannot match the stability we've built, it could create imbalance. Evan inhaled sharply. Mom is not a problem. Miranda gave a soft laugh. No one said she is, but the implication sat in the center of the table like a lit candle. Douglas leaned forward. No disrespect meant, but young couples thrive when both families support them, substantially. Miranda added gently, We want Lily in a marriage that elevates her, not lowers her. Every eye turned to me, except mine, because I didn't drop my gaze. I observed Miranda's polished confidence, Douglas's rigid assurance, Lily's silent shame, Evan's rising frustration, and I realized something important. They weren't just measuring me. They were counting on me to be small, silent, grateful, perfect. I let a cool breath settle my chest. You know, I murmured, lifting my water, people reveal themselves most when they think no one is paying attention. Miranda blinked. Excuse me? I offered a calm, steady look. Don't worry, I'm paying attention. Her smile tightened for the first time. The slow-burn humiliation they thought they were orchestrating? It had already turned back on them. They just didn't know it yet. Dinner should have been winding down, but with the Carter family, tension only sharpened. Miranda lifted her wine glass again, swirling it gently as if preparing for a performance. Douglas sat straighter, elbows firm on the table, his gaze locked on me like he was finally ready to deliver the main blow. He cleared his throat. Catherine, we want to discuss something practical. Evan stiffened. Dad, this is not the time. Miranda touched his wrist lightly, calm, controlling. Sweetheart, we need to protect your future. Just listen. Lily whispered, Mom, please don't. But Miranda continued as if her daughter weren't even present. She folded her hands elegantly. We've been thinking a lot about how to ensure stability for both of you. Marriage requires balance, and balance comes from removing obstacles. Her eyes slid toward me. I raised my chin a fraction. Obstacles? Miranda offered a gentle smile. Your situation is delicate. With your limited income and modest lifestyle, we worry Evan may feel responsible for you, overburdened. Douglas leaned in, voice low and deliberate. We don't want him spending his energy worrying about extra obligations. Obligations? Evan pushed back from the table slightly. Mom is not an obligation. Miranda lifted her napkin to her lips. No one is accusing anyone. We're simply being realistic. You are newly married. You need space to grow, without distractions. The waiter approached, but one stern glance from Douglas made him step back and retreat. I kept my posture relaxed. And what solution have you come up with? Miranda reached into her expensive clutch. The sequins shimmered. She pulled out a small envelope, thin, white, almost innocent. She slid it across the table toward me. Lily froze. Mom, don't do this, please. Miranda continued, unbothered. We want to help you, truly. Douglas folded his hands, staring at me with unblinking expectation. Open it. I didn't move. Miranda continued smoothly. It's a monthly arrangement to ensure your comfort, so you don't have to worry about bills, rent, or anything else. Her tone was syrupy, but her eyes shone with the cold calculation of someone who believed she'd solved a problem permanently. Lily covered her face. This is humiliating. Miranda brushed her off. It's kindness. Some people struggle to accept help. Evan's voice broke slightly. Mom, you don't have to listen to this. I rested 2 fingers on the envelope. It weighed almost nothing, but the insult inside it was heavier than stone. I lifted the flap with steady composure. Inside was a check, $400. Miranda added softly, every month, $600 if needed. Douglas nodded with crisp approval. Think of it as appreciation for giving them space. Lily's breath hitched. Mom, what is wrong with you? Miranda responded without looking at her. This is for your future, sweetheart. Your marriage will be smoother without outside interference. I raised my gaze. Outside interference? Miranda folded her napkin precisely. It's natural. Young couples thrive when parents know when to step back. Some parents have a harder time doing so. The implication landed directly in front of me. They wanted me gone, paid off like unwanted clutter in their perfect world. Evan looked at me helplessly. Mom, you don't have to take this. I held the check between 2 fingers. This is your solution? Miranda nodded gracefully. It's generous. Many people your age would be grateful. Douglas added, it's more than fair considering your limitations. My jaw remained still. What makes you think I need this? I asked quietly. Miranda leaned forward, fully confident she'd won. Because, Catherine, we know your situation. The apartment, the clothes, the job. It's admirable how you get by, but Evan can't carry that weight. Douglas continued the attack. He shouldn't feel responsible for you. Evan's face turned red with anger. I never said that. Miranda raised an eyebrow. You didn't need to. We've seen enough. Her gaze returned to me. We're giving you independence, and in return, we kindly ask for distance. There it was, not even hidden. She wanted me erased, removed like a stain from their polished life. Lily whispered, voice shaking, This isn't right. Miranda ignored her completely, eyes locked onto mine with surgical precision. We hope you accept. It's for everyone's good. Everyone's good, meaning their image, their comfort, their pride. I slipped the check back into the envelope, tapping it twice against the table. My pulse didn't rise, my breathing stayed calm. Quiet power, not explosive rage. I stood slowly, pushing back my chair without a single tremble. Miranda watched closely, expecting gratitude. Or shame. or surrender. Instead, I looked her directly in the eyes. $400, I repeated evenly. Miranda nodded with satisfaction. Every month, dear. Douglas added, 600 if things become difficult for you. I exhaled through my nose, a calm, silent dismissal of their entire worldview. Then I placed the envelope neatly in the center of the table. My voice remained controlled, but the steel underneath was impossible to miss. Tell me something, Miranda. She tilted her head. Of course. What price, I asked softly, do you usually place on making someone disappear? Her expression flickered, just for a second. Douglas straightened abruptly. There's no need for dramatics. Lily whispered fiercely, Mom, stop this. You're humiliating her. I lifted a hand gently. No, she's humiliating herself. Miranda blinked twice, stunned. Excuse me? I leaned in slightly. Not aggressive, just intentional. This check, I continued, tells me everything about how little you understand the people around you. Douglas bristled. It's more than most have. But not more than I have. Silence froze the table. Miranda's confidence cracked. A line, thin as glass, split her composure. I stood straighter, eyes calm, tone even colder. You think I am someone who can be moved with pocket money. Her lips parted, but no sound escaped. I nodded once, final and firm. You're mistaken. Evan exhaled in a shaky breath. Lily covered her mouth in shock. Douglas sat frozen. And Miranda Carter, polished, flawless, and used to controlling every room she entered, finally lost her poise. Because she realized the one thing she had never expected. The woman she tried to buy off was not for sale. For a moment, the table sat frozen. Miranda stared at me the way someone stares at a fuse they didn't realize they'd just lit. Douglas looked as if he couldn't decide whether to argue or retreat. Lily's eyes shimmered with humiliation she couldn't escape. And Evan, my son, looked like he was seeing me for the first time. I lowered myself back into my chair, slow, deliberate, forcing everyone else to remain standing in their discomfort without even leaving their seats. All right, I murmured, clasping my hands calmly. You wanted transparency. Let's talk. Miranda bristled. Catherine, we don't need— You do, I corrected. Or you wouldn't have brought a lawyer to my front door 3 days after your daughter married my son. Her jaw tightened. Douglas leaned forward again, trying to regain authority. You were assessing your investment, I cut in sharply. Like sensible business people. I understand. He froze mid-breath. I let the silence linger before turning to Evan. Sweetheart, do you remember why I never talked about money when you were growing up? He blinked hard. Because you wanted me to focus on work, not handouts. Correct, I nodded. Because wealth can weaken a spine when handed too soon. I wanted you strong, not dependent. Miranda attempted a soft laugh. There's nothing wrong with supporting children. There is, I interrupted, if support comes with control attached. Douglas stiffened. Miranda recoiled as if struck. I inhaled steadily, letting every word land with precision. You two keep talking about stability, about support, about providing the life your daughter deserves. I leaned slightly forward. So let me show you what real stability looks like. Miranda blinked. Catherine, we didn't come here to— You came here to measure me, I replied. So let's measure. I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Not the lottery ticket. Not yet. But something more unsettling for them, a Northern Crest Capital quarterly statement. I placed it gently on the table. Miranda frowned. What is that? Evidence, I responded. Not of what I own, but of what I built. Douglas hesitated, eyes scanning the page. The numbers made his breath hitch. 2 million, 5 million, 8 million, returns, growth, assets. Miranda's voice quivered for the first time all evening. Where did this come from? From work, I answered. From discipline. From not needing to broadcast success to feel successful. Evan swallowed, stunned. Mom? What is this? I turned to him calmly. 5 years ago, I won $33 million. Silence detonated across the table. Lily gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Miranda's wine glass trembled. Douglas stared like he'd seen a ghost. Evan whispered, "Mom, you... what?" I nodded once. 33 million. And I invested it quietly, strategically. It grew. I tapped the statement. This is just a fraction. Miranda inhaled sharply, face draining of color. But your apartment... A choice, I replied. Wealth is safest when invisible. People treat you honestly when they think you have nothing. Douglas's jaw tightened. You let us believe. I let you reveal yourselves. Lily wiped her face with trembling fingers. Catherine, I didn't know. I swear. I know you didn't, I acknowledged. Because I wanted Evan to marry someone who loved him, not someone who saw dollar signs. Miranda's voice cracked. Why hide it? Why pretend? Because money exposes people, I answered, tone steady. It exposed you tonight. Her breath shuddered. Douglas spoke through clenched teeth. This changes things. No, I corrected. This reveals things. He clenched his napkin. You should have told us. Why? I countered. So you could increase the size of your bribe? Negotiate a better deal to remove me? Miranda whispered. We didn't mean... You meant every word, I replied, unblinking. And now you must live with the consequences. Even the waiter sensed the shift. He walked past our table like he was avoiding a live electric wire. Evan was still frozen, struggling to breathe. Mom, why didn't you tell me? I softened slightly, only for him. You were building your own life. I didn't want my money to become your identity. His eyes glistened. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. Miranda leaned forward, voice trembling. We weren't trying to judge. You were, I corrected softly. And you did. She swallowed. We were concerned. No, Miranda, I whispered. You were calculating. She blinked fast. Douglas exhaled, shaky. If we had known, you would have acted differently, I finished, which is precisely why I didn't tell you. Lily whispered, Oh my God! Miranda tried to gather what remained of her dignity. Catherine, this is surprising. We simply didn't expect... That I could exceed your standards? My tone sharpened. That someone who dresses simply might have built more wealth than your entire portfolio combined? Miranda's face flushed deep red. You judged my appearance, I continued. My clothes, my home, my job. You assumed I was beneath you. She whispered, We didn't know. That's the problem. You never asked. Douglas pressed his palms against the table, desperate to regain footing. This doesn't mean we can't move forward as a family. I stared at him. Family built on disrespect collapses. Miranda flinched again. And now, I finished quietly, you finally understand something you never saw coming. Lily leaned forward, whispering, What? What is that? I let the words fall with a calm, devastating clarity. You never insulted me. You exposed yourselves. Miranda's breath hitched. Douglas swallowed hard. Lily cried silently. Evan whispered, Mom, that's the truth. Silence tightened around the table like a closing fist. Miranda stared at me as if she'd just realized she'd walked into a room she no longer controlled. Douglas's posture stiffened, shoulders rigid, his confidence splintering. Lily's eyes were glassy with humiliation she couldn't swallow. Evan kept staring at me, shocked, proud, confused, relieved, all at once. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded calmly. You came into tonight assuming you understood everything about me, I began. You built a whole narrative from a cardigan and a canvas bag. Miranda's throat bobbed as she tried to recover. Catherine, people draw conclusions. It's natural. No, I cut in cleanly. Judgment is natural. Humiliation is intentional." Her breath caught. Douglas cleared his throat roughly. "You're twisting things." "Am I?" I lifted an eyebrow. "Let's revisit the facts." I raised one finger. "You judged my clothes." Another finger. "You judged my apartment." Another. "You judged my salary, my worth, my role in my son's life." Miranda swallowed hard. Then I lowered my hand. "And you underestimated me, every step of the way." Miranda's lips trembled. "We weren't trying to offend you." "Of course you weren't," I responded softly. "You were trying to diminish me." Douglas pressed his fist against his mouth, frustrated. "You're making this unnecessarily dramatic." "Douglas," I replied evenly, "if you think this is dramatic, you haven't been paying attention." The waiter tried to refill Miranda's wineglass. She covered it with a shaking hand. I continued, my voice calm, surgical. "You offered me $400 a month to disappear. You lectured me on stability. You questioned whether Evan would be overburdened by his own mother." Miranda winced as if the words physically struck her. "And the irony," I added, "is that you did all of this while sitting across from someone who could have bought this entire restaurant before dessert." Douglas's jaw clenched. "This is unnecessary." "No," I countered. "This is clarity." Lily wiped a tear from her cheek. "Catherine, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they would—" I shook my head gently. "You weren't the problem, Lily. The problem is entitlement disguised as sophistication." Miranda stiffened. "We are not entitled." "Then why speak as if your family holds the only definition of success?" Miranda didn't answer. I leaned forward a touch, voice cooler. "You both walked into this dinner expecting Evan to marry up. Not sideways, not down. Up." Douglas didn't argue. "You thought your daughter was a prize," I continued, "and my son needed to prove he was worthy." Miranda's face paled. "And in your minds," I finished softly, "I was the evidence he wasn't." Lily let out a faint sob. Evan's jaw tightened. "Mom, they were wrong." "I know," I replied, "but this isn't about me anymore." I turned toward Lily, her mascara smeared, head bowed. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes, shame burning through them. "You judged nothing," I told her. "You followed pressure, not your heart." Her chin quivered. "I should have defended you." "You will," I said simply, "because you know the truth now." Miranda whispered sharply, "Lily, don't let her manipulate—" I cut her off with a quiet, lethal calm. "I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm exposing behavior you've disguised as etiquette." Miranda blinked rapidly. "You think money gives you superiority," I said. "But money didn't reveal you. Humility did." Douglas shifted uncomfortably. "We misread the situation." "No," I replied. "You revealed your values, and values don't change with new information." Miranda's voice finally cracked. "We only wanted what's best for Lily." "Then stop teaching her to measure people by what they wear." Lily gasped softly. Douglas bristled. "That's not fair." "It's accurate," I responded, "and accuracy isn't always comfortable." Miranda reached for her napkin, hands trembling. "Catherine, you're twisting us into villains." "You twisted yourselves," I answered. "I simply removed the filter." Miranda's eyes glossed with panic. "We can move past this. We can—" "You can't," I interrupted, "because you're still trying to preserve your image instead of acknowledging your behavior." Douglas exhaled sharply. "What exactly do you want from us?" I looked straight at him. "Respect." He blinked. "Not for what I own," I clarified. "Not for my money. For my humanity. Something you failed to offer all evening." Miranda's chin trembled. "We didn't think—" "That's the issue," I interrupted again. "You didn't think I was worth thinking about." Lily burst into a quiet sob. Evan slid his arm around her shoulders. "It's okay," he murmured. "It's not your fault." Miranda's eyes flew to Lily, desperate. "Sweetheart." Lily pulled away from her touch. That hit Miranda harder than any word I'd spoken. I continued, my voice calm and steady. People obsessed with money understand value the least. Miranda froze, breath lodged in her chest. Douglas swallowed, unable to look at me. I delivered the finishing cut, clean, unwavering. I didn't make you look small. You did that on your own. Miranda's face collapsed. No mask left, no pride left, nothing to hide behind. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the soft piano playing in the background couldn't soften the blow. Finally, Evan spoke, voice low but certain. She's right. Miranda whipped her head toward him. Evan. No, he insisted. You two humiliated her. You humiliated me. Lily touched his arm. Evan, I'm sorry. He nodded, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You weren't part of it. But they were. Miranda turned to Douglas, wordless. Douglas stared at the table linen as if wishing he could disappear under it. And I lifted my water glass. To truth, I murmured softly. The waiter approached cautiously, as if sensing the emotional debris scattered across the table. His polite smile faltered when he caught the tension. Whenever you're ready, he offered gently. I can bring the bill. Miranda flinched at the word bill, as if reality had just tapped her shoulder. Douglas cleared his throat, straightened his suit jacket, and attempted to reclaim control of the evening. Yes, he announced, forcing authority back into his voice. We'll take the check. The waiter nodded and stepped away. Miranda smoothed her hair, trying to rebuild whatever remained of her dignity. Douglas, dear, let's settle this quickly. She was trying to move the night along, trying to escape, trying to pretend the last 20 minutes hadn't happened. But humiliation never lets someone leave early. When the waiter returned, he placed the folder carefully in front of Douglas. Douglas opened it and froze. His brows drew inward. His lips tightened. His eyes darted across the page like he was searching for an escape hatch. Miranda leaned closer. Is there a problem? Douglas swallowed. The first bead of sweat formed at his temple. It's... He paused, lowering his voice. Higher than expected. It's fine, Miranda whispered, desperate for normalcy. Just pay it. Douglas reached into his wallet and produced a sleek platinum card. He handed it to the waiter with a stiff nod. The waiter took it and stepped away. A few long seconds passed. Then the waiter returned, too quickly. I'm so sorry, sir, he said quietly. Your card didn't go through. Miranda's eyes snapped wide open. What do you mean, didn't go through? The waiter kept his voice low. It was declined. Douglas blinked hard, stunned. Run it again. Of course. The waiter left. Lily covered her mouth, horrified. Evan lowered his gaze, embarrassed for them. Miranda's fingers trembled on her wineglass. This is ridiculous. Banks make mistakes. Douglas didn't answer. His jaw worked in tight circles. 30 seconds later, the waiter returned, color drained from his face. I'm sorry, sir. Declined again. The humiliation detonated. Miranda's face turned ghost white. Impossible. That card has no limit. Douglas shot her a look, telling her to shut up, but it was too late. People at nearby tables looked over. A couple at the bar whispered. The humiliation they had carefully crafted for me hours earlier was now drowning them. Douglas reached into his wallet again and pulled out a second card, this one black, with a gold chip. Try this, he muttered sharply. The waiter nodded quickly and retreated. Miranda leaned in, whispering fiercely, Fix this, Douglas. How? He snapped. I didn't expect... You should have checked. Miranda, he warned. Lily stood abruptly. Mom, Dad, just stop, please. Miranda ignored her daughter completely, eyes burning with panic. Evan rested his hand on Lily's back, steadying her. I kept my posture straight, composed. Miranda noticed, and that seemed to enrage her even more. You're enjoying this, she whispered at me. No, I replied calmly. I don't enjoy people suffering, but I do value consequences. Her eyes flashed. The waiter returned again, slower this time. His expression said everything. Sir, I'm very sorry. That card didn't go through either. Miranda slapped a hand over her mouth. Douglas's breathing turned shallow. He grabbed his phone, hands shaking. "I'll call the bank," he muttered, stepping away from the table. The waiter glanced at me nervously, unsure what to do. We can wait, of course." I offered a steady nod. "Thank you." Miranda stared at Douglas pacing near the kitchen entrance, whispering sharply into his phone. Lily whispered, voice trembling, "I can cover it. I have my card." "No," Evan replied. "This mess isn't yours." Miranda sank into her chair, shaking. "This is humiliating." I tilted my head. "Yes, it is." "Yes." As she looked at me with wounded pride. "We're not bad people." "Bad?" I echoed softly. "No, just arrogant." She blinked rapidly. "And arrogance," I continued gently, "always shows up when humility is due." Miranda closed her eyes, overwhelmed. Douglas returned after 2 minutes, face red, fury simmering. "Bank flagged the transactions for security," he muttered. "They asked me to confirm identity. They're processing it." The waiter waited patiently. "Of course, sir." Miranda leaned forward with trembling hands. "Catherine, this isn't—" I raised a hand lightly. "Miranda, you don't need to explain. I understand perfectly." She swallowed. "You do?" "Yes," I replied. "Money doesn't always obey the people who worship it." Her mouth fell open. Douglas hissed under his breath, "Enough." The waiter lingered awkwardly. I exhaled softly, reached into my humble canvas bag, and placed my wallet on the table. Then I slid out a card. Not a debit card, not a gold card. Gold ta. A centurion. Black. Heavy. Silent. The kind of card that doesn't just open doors, it removes them. I placed it gently on the folder. "I'll take care of it," I told the waiter. Miranda stared at the card like it was radioactive. Douglas froze mid-breath. The waiter blinked in shock, then nodded. "Of course, ma'am." And he walked off to run it. Not with fear, with respect. Miranda whispered, voice barely audible. That's a centurion." "Yes." "You have one?" "Why wouldn't I?" Douglas's eyes flicked between the card and my face. "But those are extremely exclusive." "Correct." Miranda swallowed. "You didn't need to do this." "I know," Douglas growled. "We can pay—" "Eventually," I replied, "but not tonight." His nostrils flared. Miranda's voice cracked. "Catherine, we misjudged you." "No," I corrected softly. "You judged me perfectly, just incorrectly." The waiter returned, placing the receipt on the table. "It's been approved, ma'am." Of course it had. Miranda's shoulders sagged. Douglas stared at the tablecloth, deflated, defeated. Lily cried silently. Evan reached for my hand. "Mom, that was incredible." I squeezed his fingers gently. "It wasn't meant to be incredible, just honest." Miranda whispered, "You didn't have to embarrass us this way." I looked at her, calm as stone. "I didn't embarrass you, Miranda. Your behavior simply caught up to you." Douglas exhaled heavily. Miranda closed her eyes, chest rising and falling with humiliation she couldn't swallow, and I delivered the final truth. Money is loud for people who need it to speak. For those who don't, I gestured to the centurion card. It's just a tool. Silence enveloped the table again. When we stepped out of the restaurant, the cool Chicago night wrapped around us like a breath I finally allowed myself to take. The streetlights glowed against the pavement. Cars hummed down Michigan Avenue. The city felt alive, indifferent, honest, unlike the table we'd just left. Evan placed a hand on my elbow. "Mom, I can't believe tonight happened." I squeezed his hand gently. It needed to happen. Lily wiped her cheeks, mascara smudged. She looked younger without the perfect facade, fragile, human. "I didn't know they would treat you like that," she murmured, eyes downcast. I swear I didn't. I know, I replied. You weren't part of it. But she clearly felt the burden of it. A taxi pulled up, the old model kind with yellow paint faded from years in the sun. The driver rolled down the window, leaning slightly out. Need a ride? He asked warmly. His voice already soothed something inside me. Evan opened the door for me. Mom, can I follow you home after? I don't feel right leaving you alone tonight. You need to go with your wife, I told him gently. She needs you. Lily sniffed. Catherine, thank you for not yelling at me. You had every reason. I don't yell, I answered softly. People hear better when you're calm. They both paused, absorbing that. I placed a hand on Evan's cheek. Go home. Rest. We'll talk tomorrow. Evan's eyes softened into something I hadn't seen since he was a little boy. Okay, Mom. I slid into the cab. As the door shut, the noise of the night dimmed. Just me, the driver, and the quiet hum of the engine. Rough night? He asked, eyes meeting mine through the rearview mirror. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. You could say that, he chuckled gently. I've been doing this 12 years. I can tell when someone's carrying a whole evening on their shoulders. His calm presence eased the last of the tension wrapped around my lungs. Where to? He asked. I gave him my address. He pulled into traffic, the city lights streaming through the windows. After a moment, he spoke again. You look like a woman who just told the truth after holding it in a long time. I blinked. He wasn't wrong. 5 years, I murmured. He whistled softly. 5 years is a long time to stay quiet. I didn't stay quiet, I replied. I stayed cautious. He nodded. Wise difference. We drove past the Riverwalk. Couples walked hand in hand, boats docked quietly. The whole world seemed at peace, while mine had been rearranged at a dinner table. You know, he said thoughtfully, truth usually frees at least one person. I looked up. How do you mean? Sometimes it frees the one speaking it. Sometimes the one hearing it. He paused. And sometimes it frees you from the people who never deserved you. His words landed softer than anything that had happened tonight, but deeper. He glanced at me again. That's the thing about being honest. It sounds harsh to the people who benefited from your silence. I let out a soft, surprised laugh. You're wiser than most people I know. He shrugged. Driving strangers around every night, you learn how people break and how they heal. For the first time tonight, I felt something loosen in my chest. And what do you think tonight was? I asked. He thought for a moment, eyes narrowing slightly in reflection. A turning point, he decided. A night where people showed you who they are, and you finally showed them who you are. I stared out the window. Chicago's skyline flickered against the river. Do you regret telling them? He asked quietly. I shook my head. No. I regret staying silent so long that they thought silence was weakness. That happens, he replied softly. Kind people get mistaken for fragile, but kindness and weakness aren't the same language. The truth of that eased something deeper inside me. He continued, Some folks only understand respect when it's spoken in a tone they can't ignore. The corner of my mouth lifted. I suppose I used the right tone. He smiled. Ma'am, I bet you used the right everything. We turned down a quieter street. My apartment building came into view, small, humble, and exactly as I wanted it. Can I tell you something? The driver asked as we slowed to a stop. Of course. You walked into that cab with a weight on your shoulders. You're stepping out with clarity. That's what truth does. It doesn't always feel good, but it always feels right. I opened my door slowly. Thank you, I whispered. For the ride. For the words. That's what I'm here for, he said warmly. Taxi drivers hear the stories people don't dare tell anyone else. I paused, then asked him, Your name? Rowan, he replied. Mr. Rowan. Tonight was a long time coming. He nodded once. Good. Then let the truth do the heavy lifting now. And you, he pointed gently at me, you get to breathe again. I closed the door. He waited until I stepped safely onto the sidewalk before pulling away. The street was quiet. A soft breeze brushed past me. For the first time in years, I felt my life shifting back into place. Not because I revealed the money, because I reclaimed my dignity. I looked up at my apartment windows, warm yellow light glowing through the curtains. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace nudging at the edges of my rib cage. Truth freed someone tonight. It freed me. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my living room floor in narrow gold lines. I hadn't slept much, but for the first time in years, my mind felt clear. Clean. Steady. Just as I poured myself a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed sharply on the counter. Evan. I answered on the second ring. Mom? His breath rushed out like he'd run a mile. I need to talk to you now. I frowned slightly. Is everything all right? No, he muttered. But it's going to be. Come over, I told him. He arrived 15 minutes later, still wearing the same clothes from last night, shirt wrinkled, hair messy, eyes red with exhaustion and anger. Lily followed him in, hovering behind him like a shadow made of anxiety. Mom, he began, pacing immediately. I can't believe what they did, what they said, what they tried. Lily clasped her hands together. Catherine, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Last night I thought I'd throw up watching them talk to you like that. I gestured for them to sit. Too. Evan didn't. He kept pacing, hands on his hips. I confronted them, he blurted out. After you left. I told them everything they did was disgusting. Lily nodded, eyes downcast. He stood up for you. He didn't hold back. I raised an eyebrow. And how did they react? Evan barked a short, humorless laugh. Exactly how you'd expect. Denial, blame, twisting everything. He ran a hand through his hair. They tried to make you the problem. Of course they did. And, he continued, anger flaring, they tried to make me the problem too, said I was ungrateful, said I was choosing the wrong influence, trying to guilt-trip me like I'm 12. Lily winced. My mom told him he was throwing away a lifetime of stability by defending you. I folded my arms. Did you believe her? Evan finally looked at me. Really looked. No, he answered. Because last night I finally understood who they are. He dropped into the chair across from me. Mom, all my life I thought you were struggling. I thought I had to protect you, and I felt ashamed for not being able to give you more. But last night I saw... His voice cracked. I saw you standing against them with more strength than I've ever had. I leaned forward. Evan, strength isn't loud. It's consistent. He swallowed hard, absorbing that. Then his tone turned sharper. They treated you like trash because they thought you had nothing. And when they found out the truth, they treated themselves like trash trying to recover. Lily whispered, It was the ugliest version of them. Evan nodded fiercely. And I'm done. I'm done letting them meddle. I'm done pretending their approval means anything. And I'm done letting my wife get guilted into obedience. Lily flinched. Evan... He reached for her hand, squeezing tight. Lily, I love you, but you cannot let them dictate how we live. Tears brimmed in her eyes. I know that now. I studied her carefully. Lily, what do you want? She swallowed. I want us, me and Evan, without them pulling every string. Then say it clearly, I told her softly. Your voice matters. She inhaled shakily. I'm choosing my husband. Her voice trembled. And I'm choosing you, Catherine. You're not the villain they tried to make you. Evan kissed her forehead. That's why we're here. We're making boundaries. I sat back. Good. What boundaries? Evan didn't hesitate. No more unannounced visits. No more backhanded comments. No more controlling our decisions. His jaw tightened. And no more using money to manipulate us. We'll pay them back for whatever they gave us. Lily gasped. Ev, we will, he insisted. We don't owe them control. I watched him carefully. This wasn't anger talking. This was awakening. Mom, he said quietly, you taught me last night what real dignity looks like. That surprised me. You didn't yell. You didn't break. You didn't stoop to their level. You just held your truth, and they crumbled. I nodded once. That's what truth does. It doesn't need volume. He breathed in deeply. I'm done being terrified of disappointing them. I'm an adult. I get to choose whose values I follow. And whose values is that? I asked gently. He didn't blink. Yours. Lily leaned closer to him, pressing her forehead against his shoulder. I'm with him, whatever he decides. He placed a hand over hers. We're building our own family, not inheriting theirs. I let the words settle. Then I spoke quietly. Evan, choosing your own path is the first step to becoming the man you're supposed to be. His voice thickened. Last night, when you put that black card down, it wasn't the money that shocked me. Oh? It was the calm, he said. The way you handled them without hatred, without fear. You didn't use money to humiliate them. You used truth. I smiled faintly. Money is only a tool. Character is the foundation, Lily whispered. Your foundation is steel. I turned to her. And what about yours? She hesitated. Then she straightened. I want to rebuild mine, with the right people. Evan looked at her with pride. That's all I ever wanted. I exhaled slowly. Finally, the moment I'd been waiting years for. Evan reached across the table and took my hand firmly. I'm proud of you, Mom. The sentence landed deeper than anything the Carters had thrown at me. Thank you, I murmured. He squeezed my hand again. We're not going back there tonight, or tomorrow, or after. We're done being controlled. Lily nodded, wiping her tears. We're choosing peace. I smiled softly. Then you're choosing right. They stood. Evan hugged me tightly, tighter than he had since he was a boy. Lily hugged me next. A little stiff at first, then real. Lily came alone. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through my living room curtains when I heard the soft knock at my door, 3 quick taps, hesitant, almost fragile. When I opened it, Lily stood there holding nothing but her keys and a trembling breath. Her eyes were swollen, makeup gone, hair pulled back in a simple tie. Without the polished image her mother insisted on, she looked young, human, herself. Catherine, she whispered. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Of course. She walked in slowly, as if afraid the floor might crack beneath her. I gestured toward the sofa. She didn't sit. She stood in the center of the room, twisting her fingers together. Her voice cracked open immediately. I'm sorry. I waited. I know you didn't owe us anything. And last night I just kept thinking, how did I let them talk to you like that? How did I not stop it? You were raised to obey, I said gently. Obedience is a powerful cage. She flinched. I hate that it trapped me. I hate that it hurt you. I shook my head lightly. I don't blame you. Her chin trembled. You should. I stepped closer. No, because you listened when truth spoke. That's more than your parents did. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Your son deserved better. You deserved better. Then show it now, I said softly. She swallowed hard. I will. I poured us tea. Nothing fancy, just chamomile from a tin, the way I always made it. I handed her a cup. Her hands shook as she accepted it, but the warmth steadied her. She sat finally, breathing shallowly. Last night, after Evan confronted them, they blamed me. They told me I ruined the dynamic, that I embarrassed the family, that I should never take your side. They said exactly what I expected. She blinked up. How can you stay so calm? Because people reveal themselves when their comfort is threatened. I took a sip of tea. And your parents live inside their comfort. Lily exhaled shakily. I don't want to be like them. Good, that's the first step. She stared into her cup. My mother always taught me money decides everything, that love matters, but stability matters more. And she confused wealth with stability. I leaned back. A stable heart builds a stable life. Money only organizes it. Lily wiped her cheek. You really believe that? I lived it, I answered. I raised Evan with discipline, not with a wallet. She nodded slowly, almost reverently. I want to tell you something, she murmured. I didn't choose Evan because of money. I chose him because he reminded me of the life I once wanted. The life before my parents' world swallowed everything. That's why you're redeemable, I replied. You still know the difference. Lily covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. I'm scared. Of what? That they'll cut me off forever. I placed my cup down and spoke calmly. They didn't raise you to be free. They raised you to be loyal. And loyalty built on fear is not loyalty, it's control. She lifted her gaze. So what do I do? You choose, I said simply. Choose the family you're building, not the one that owns your past. Her lips parted in a trembling breath. I love Evan. I'm not losing him. You won't, I assured. He chose truth, and truth holds. Her crying softened. She set her tea down carefully. Then she stood, walked toward me, and said something I didn't expect. Catherine, may I hug you? I nodded. She wrapped her arms around me, awkward at first, then desperate, like someone embracing safety for the first time. When she pulled back, her eyes were steadier. There's one more thing, she whispered. I want you in our lives, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because you're the only real example of how a woman should carry strength. I felt something warm push through my chest, quiet, gentle, not dramatic. Then listen carefully, I murmured. Strength is not noise. Strength is making the right choices even when they cost you comfort, she nodded. And dignity, I added, is protecting your heart without ever using it as a weapon. She absorbed the words like medicine. I want to learn from you, she said softly. You will, I replied. And one day you'll teach your children what your parents never taught you. She placed her hand over her heart. I needed to hear that. Good, I said, because I need to tell you one more thing. She leaned forward. Money is a tool, Lily, not identity. Your parents built themselves out of wealth, and that's why they crumble when it wavers. Her throat tightened. And what about you? I built myself out of truth. Her lips parted in a silent breath. That's why I don't crumble. For a long moment she stood there, quiet, absorbing the kind of strength she'd never been taught to value. Finally she whispered, Thank you for not giving up on me. You gave me a reason not to. She nodded once, firm this time. We'd like to invite you for dinner tomorrow, she said. Just us, just family, nothing fancy. I smiled warmly. I'll bring dessert. She let out a soft laugh, small, real. Then she hugged me one last time before stepping out the door. As it closed behind her, evening sunlight washed across my living room, warm and bright. And for the first time in years, I whispered to myself, real wealth is peace. And finally, I had both.